Okay, assalamu alaikum and good morning to everyone. Welcome back to grade 8 mathematics by Inspired Teens, where in today's lesson we'll be continuing with fractions, decimals, and percentages. Okay, so just to recap what we did last time, we started off doing fractions, right? We just discussed fractions, terminology around fractions, equivalent fractions, okay, converting from one fraction to another, converting from one fraction to another, like with two equal. Converting from one fraction to another when two fractions are equal to each other. Okay, that's what we did. English is hard. Okay, and then what else we did? We did changing mixed numbers to improper fractions and adding and subtracting fractions as well as multiplying fractions. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. So yes, we said that we were discussing mixed numbers into improper fractions. We were doing conversions, adding and subtracting fractions, as well as multiplying fractions, right? These are all important. Remember, adding and subtracting fractions, we utilize what? We utilize LCD, okay? And then multiplying fractions, we just multiply in a straight line. So that works, all right? Then we said dividing fractions. Again, remember, we don't divide fractions. We do divide. The way to divide fractions is by flipping and timesing or tipping and timesing, whichever one you learned. So let us move on. Okay, so let's do some mixed examples. Okay, so remember BODMAS. Let's look at these. Okay, so these are just addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, just some mixed examples. BODMAS. Remember, what is BODMAS? BODMAS is brackets, omissions, or operations, actually, brackets, omissions / operations, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. Okay, so firstly, before we do anything, we need to remember BODMAS. So in this case, I have a subtraction and a multiplication, of which I have to do the multiplication first. Okay, now in order for me to do this multiplication, let's convert everything to an improper fraction. Let's revise how we did that quickly. Improper to mixed. We ask ourselves, okay, no, that's mixed. We need to do mixed to improper. So remember, with mixed to improper, you take your denominator, you multiply it by your coefficient, and then you add your numerator and keep the same denominator. So let's do that. You take the denominator, multiply it by your coefficient, and add the numerator. This simplifies to 5/2 minus 7/8 times, take this, multiply it by that, add that, so it becomes 22/21. Okay, so now, so now what do we do? Let's use this actually. So now what do we do? Now we can actually perform this multiplication. How do we multiply fractions? Always in a straight line. Always in a straight line. How do we multiply fractions? Always in a straight line. So numerator by numerator is going to give me my new numerator. 7 times 22. So of course, you're going to need your calculator for these multiplications. 7 times 22 is 154. 8 times 21. 8 times 21 is 168. Let's just make sure that we're correct. I forgot to simplify fractions. That's why. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back. I forgot one step. Okay. And I realized that we should follow that step because it's going to make it a lot easier for you guys. Okay. And what is that step? That step is simplifying fractions. Okay. I'm sure you guys remember this. We simplify at the top, simplify at the bottom. Okay. Sorry, just 1 second. Okay. Simplify at the top or simplify at the bottom. We can only do this when we have multiplication. Okay, so we can sort of cancel a number at the top, cancel a number at the bottom. How does it work again? Let's remind ourselves how it works. Okay, so basically it's like you divide both numbers by the same number. So if we look at 7 and 8, okay, because that's what we can look at, a numerator and a denominator. So 7 and 8. Is there a number that can go into 7 a perfect amount of times and a number that can go into 8 a perfect amount of times? No, there isn't. All right. Let's look at 22 and 21. Is there a number that can go into 22 and 21 a perfect amount of times? No, there isn't. So we can look across. Let's look at 7 and 21. Now 7 and 21. Yes, there is a number that can go into 7 and 21 an exact amount of times, and that number is 7. 7 goes into 7 once, and 7 goes into 21 3 times. So now we've simplified our fraction. Okay. Then we can also look at 22 and 8. 22 and 8 both are even numbers, so they definitely can both be simplified if we divide by 2. So divide that by 2, I'm getting 11. Divide that by 2, you get 4. Okay. Now it might be a bit easier to multiply. So you can multiply it here, or you can rewrite it if you want to, so that it's a bit more clear. You're left with 1 over 4 times 11 over 3. So now we can simplify 5 over 2 minus 11 over 12. Do we see that? 1 times 11, 4 times 3. Okay. Now what do? Now we basically have the subtraction of fractions. When we subtract fractions, we need to do LCD. So what's the LCD? Somebody tell me, what's the LCD between 2 and 12? Between 2 and 12, what is the LCD? $12, exactly, right? It's a number that both can go into an exact amount of times, and that number would be 12 itself. Okay. And now 11, okay. To get from 12 to 12, you have to multiply by 1. It's basically the same denominator. So 11 over 12 will still be represented by 11 over 12 in that scheme. So I'm putting it all under one denominator. Minus still stays the same as well. But 5 is going to change because 5 went from a denominator of 2 to 12. So it needs to be multiplied by 6, because to get from 2 to 12, you multiply by 6. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top, and you're going to get 5 times 6, which is 30. So you get 30 minus 11 over 12, which becomes 19 over 12. And that's our final answer. Okay. Okay, you guys can practice this one. You guys can practice both. I'll leave the solutions up. You guys can practice them and let me know how they go. Okay, if you have any issues, you let me know. I'll leave the solutions for both of them with you guys. Okay, let's have a look at this. Common fractions, decimals, and percentages. Converting from one to the other and all of that, right? Let's look at this. decimal to percentage. A reminder, a percentage is a fraction out of 100. Example, 50% is equal to 50 out of 100, which is equal to a half, which is equal to 0.5. So all of these are actually like the same thing. They are equal. They are 100% equal. Okay, 50% is equal to 5 over 100, which is equal to half, which is equal to 0.5. So a percentage is a fraction out of 100. A percentage is a fraction out of 100. So for example, if you had 30%, this is equal to 30 over 100. That's how it's calculated. Okay, which is actually the same as, okay, I don't really have any. Let's see, actually. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, as a decimal, it's 0.3. And as a fraction, I don't think, yeah, it is 3 over 10. Okay. So how do we convert from decimal then, in that case, to percentage? So in that case, it says steps multiply by 100. So move the comma 2 places to the right. So yes, any decimal going to a percentage is it left as an improper fraction, or should we convert to a proper fraction? I think what you meant to ask, because you cannot convert an improper fraction to a proper fraction. I think what you meant to ask is, can you convert it to a mixed number with a proper fraction? It depends on your teacher. Like for the most part, this should be okay. Also preference. So if you want to convert it to a mixed number, you could, but also it depends on your teacher. Some teachers might want it in improper, some wouldn't mind this, but some would want you to convert it to a mixed number. So how do you convert it to a mixed number? You say, how many times is 12 going to 19? 12 goes into 19 once, with a remainder of 7 over the same denominator, 12. So 1 and 7 over 12 would be the mixed number answer for this. Multiply by 100, so move the comma 2 spaces to the right. Yes, exactly. If you want to convert a decimal to a percentage, that's all you do, multiply by 100. Or move the comma 2 spaces to the right. Multiply this by 100 as well. Right, 5.3. Let's do this one. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So we are converting from decimals to percentages by moving the comma 2 spaces to the right. Okay. What do we do next? Which one? Decimal to common fraction. So now we want to convert a decimal to a common fraction. Okay. And in this case, you are going to, we can use denominators of 10, 100, 1,000, etc. to simplify the fraction. Okay. So what does that mean? Okay. It basically means you're going to divide by 100, sorry, 10, 100, 1,000, etc. Okay. Use denominators slash, we're going to divide. Okay, so when we divide by 10, okay, or rather, when do we divide by 10? We divide by 10 when we have 2 decimal places. 1 second, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. So yes, when do we divide by 10? When we have two decimal places. When do we divide by 100? When we have, sorry, no, there should be 1. When we have two decimal places, we divide by 100. And finally, when we have 3 decimal places, divide by 1,000, and so on. Okay, and so on and so forth. So let's not multiply, not divide. This is actually we can say multiply. I'll show you guys the process and it will make more sense. Okay, so use denominators of 10, 100, and 1,000, etc. So we actually technically going to multiply by these terms, multiply by 10, multiply by 100, multiply by 1,000. But then we also going to, so let's just say multiply by 10, 100, 1,000, etc. and make the denominator 10 or 100 or 1,000, etc. Okay, so I'll show you an example. So here we have 2 decimal places. By the way, that's after the comma. How many digits do you have? 2. So we have 2 decimal places. So this guy, I need to multiply this by 100. So when I multiply it by 100, the comma, so let's talk about comma. I don't know how to label it. But when you multiply, move the comma to the right. When you divide, okay. Move the comma to the left. Okay, that's important to remember. So in this case, when I multiply by 100, it's going to become 0.12. It's going to become 65. Okay, and then I make the denominator, I make it in a fraction, and I make the denominator either 10, 100, or 1,000, whatever I just divided it by. Okay, so it's essentially like what you do is you put it over 1 and multiply the top and the bottom by 100 by the same number. So therefore, you're not changing the value. Okay, 65 over 100, which you can also simplify. Okay, so this there simplifies to 13 over 20. I'm not mistaken. Let's double check. Yeah, 13/20. Okay, so you should simplify the fractions as well. Okay, let's look at the next one. Question number 2. This is how many decimal places? 3. So what am I going to multiply by? 1,000. And then divide by 1,000. So it's equal to 2,323. I move the decimal places 1, 2, 3 zeros. So 1, 2, 3 spots. So this is equal to 2,326 divided by what you just multiplied it by. So again, you're not changing the value. Okay, and I'm sure we can simplify this. Put in your calculator. 2,326 divided by 1,000. And this is equal to half of it, which is 1,163 divided by 500. Okay. So again, this is an improper fraction. We can convert it into a mixed number if you'd like. It would be equal to, how many times is 500 going to 1,163? That would be 2 times, because 2 times 500 is 1,000. What am I left with? I'm left with firstly the same denominator, 500, and then the 1,000 minus that number, which gives us 163. 2 and 163rd 500ths, basically. Okay, so that's the final answer. Let's look at the next type of question that we need to understand. Common fraction to decimal. So to convert from a common fraction, remember, we said common fraction is what exactly? Common fraction is just your regular fractions, right? We distinguish proper fractions and improper fractions. Where proper fractions, the denominator is bigger, and improper fractions, the numerator is bigger. Okay, so convert dominator to smallest power of 10. Okay, if you can't do division. Okay, convert the decimals without the calculator. No. Okay, so that makes sense, right? Let me explain it to you guys. So basically what we're going to have to do, right, is number 1, it says convert the denominator to the smallest power of 10 that you can. Okay, so 10, 100, 1,000. These are the powers of 10 of 10. 10 times 10 times 10 again times 10 again would be 10,000, and then 100,000, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we need to find the first number from 10, 100 that 4 goes into a perfect amount of times. We need to find, okay, we need to find the smallest number. Yeah, the smallest number from 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000 that our denominator can go into. What's the smallest number between 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 and all of that 4 can go into? Can someone tell me? Not 10. 4 cannot go into 10. Maybe you're thinking that 2 can go into 4 and 10, but 4 cannot go into 10. I'm talking about like 4 needs to be, 10 needs to be divisible by 4. Okay, 100 is correct. Okay, so 100. This is the lowest number between this list, between the powers of 10 that 4 can go into is 100, right? 100 times 25 is 100 times 4 times 25 is 100. There we go. Okay, so let's convert this to 100. How would we convert it to 100? Okay. How would we convert it to 100? Like I just said, multiply it by 25. So sorry, we have 3/4 multiplied by 25, multiplied by 25. This gives us 100. And this gives us 75. Now, what we do from here is when we have it over 100, it's a lot easier to solve. When we have it over 100, it's a lot easier to solve. Because if we look back here, right, here we're multiplying by 100. Okay, so now we're going to go backwards and we're dividing by 100. So basically, however many numbers you have in the numerator, sorry, in the denominator, however many zeros you have in the denominator, that's how you're going to change the decimal place on that number to convert it to a decimal. So currently, it's not a decimal. So that means it's 75,0. So can I change the decimal place? Yes, I am dividing. When you divide, what do? Move the comma to the left. Okay, you need to move the comma to the left. So let us do that. 1, 2. Because there's 2 zeros. So 1, 2. This is equal to 0,75. Okay, let's look at the next one. Convert to decimals. They want us to convert all to decimals. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so let's convert these to decimals, right? For example, 1 and 2/5. So again, first you're going to have to convert it to improper. 5 times 1 plus 2, which is 7/5. Okay, now that I have it like this, I need to convert it to a decimal. How do I convert it to a decimal? I need to get to the smallest power of 10. So what is the smallest power of 10 that 5 can go into? What is the smallest power of 10 that 5 can go into? Smallest power of 10 that 5 can go into. Any ideas? 10, very good, right? The smallest number that 5 can go into is 10. So I can convert 5 to 10. So that's what I want to do. I want to convert that denominator to 10, to 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, any of the powers of 10. So I can convert it to 10. So I can multiply it by 2, it'll give me 10. Okay, and then of course, what I do to the bottom, I do to the top as well. So here I get 10, and that's 14. Okay, so depending on the amount of zeros you have, you're going to move the comma that many times to the left because we are dividing. So 14 divided by 10, okay? 14 divided by 10, I need to move the comma one place to the left. So currently the comma is here because it's like, again, 14,0. And 2, sorry, just 1. So when you do just 1, you're left with 1,4. Okay, so let's do the next one. So, okay, so let's try this one, right? So the rule says convert it to the denominator to the smallest base of 10. What's the smallest base of 10 that 7 can go into? What is the smallest base of 10 that 7 can go into? Have you tried it? You can try it. You can say 100 divided by 7. Do you get a whole number? You don't get a whole number. You get 14,29. Okay, it's not 10, not 100. Okay, it's like none of them. Okay, in this case, when we can't, especially if it's not simple, when we can't convert the denominator to a base of 10, just do division. So long division. So 3, how is this even said? 7 divided by 3. 7 goes into 3. Okay, so now you might be thinking like this doesn't make sense, but you can do long division with decimals. Okay, so 7 cannot go into 3. 0 times 7 is 0 minus, carry it down, that's a 3. Okay, that's fine. So then what happens here? You have to bring out down the 0. So it becomes 30. So how many times now can 7 go into 30? Right? 7 can go into 30 4 times. 4 times that is 28 minus 2. 7 goes into 20 how many times? Twice. 2 times that is 7. 14. This is 6. Bring down the 0. 7 goes into 60 8 times. 8 times that is 56. This is 4, I guess. Then bring that down. 7 goes into 40. That's 35. 9 times, I believe. 5 times, sorry. That's 35 and 5 and so on. Okay, so this is going to continue forever. You could round off. Remember, you keep your placeholder in the same place, meaning your comma. We have 0,4285. You can round that off as your final answer. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. We have 2 divided by 9. So again, if we think of 9, we can't really think of a number that 9 can go into that's a base of 10. So like 10, 20, whatever it is, right? So in this case, give me a second, let's think. Okay, so not 10, 20, 10, 100, 1,000, that's what I meant. Okay, yeah, so same thing in this case, right? Where same thing in this case, right? Where you have, what do you have? You have 9, okay, which is a term that cannot go into your 10, 100, 1,000, and so on, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to do you're going to do division. So you're going to say, how is this described? This is, the bigger number is normally on top. So this is 2 divided by 9. 2 divided by 9. So you're taking 2 and you're dividing it into 9 different pieces. Okay, so how many times can 9 go into 2? So 9 goes into 2 0 times. Remember, this is a 2,0,0. So it's going to be 0, and then answer 0 minus 2 minus 0 is 2. Okay, bring the 0 down because 9 can't go into 2. 9 goes into 20 twice. 2 times 9 is 18. Remember 0. 2 as well. 2 times that is 18. That's 2. Bring another 0, 2, and it's going to go on. So essentially here you can say your answer is 2,2 recurring. Okay, so that's how you solve those questions. Let us move on if there are no questions from it. Common fraction to percentage. Okay, convert to decimal, multiply by 100 to make it into percentage. So first we got to convert to a decimal and then multiply by 100 to make it into a percentage. So how do you convert to a decimal? We just did it. Okay. We want to convert, we want to change the denominator into 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. Is there one of those numbers that 8 can go into? What is the lowest? Good. What is the lowest power of 10 that 8 can go into? 1,000. Very good. 1,000. So we multiply by 1,000. Sorry, we don't multiply by 1,000. We multiply to get to 1,000. So what times 8 gives us 1,000? I'm pretty sure it's 125 if none of you have it already. So you multiply by 125. Okay. And then you do the same for the top. So this, of course, becomes 1,000. Okay. And this becomes 625. Okay. So now that it's converted to decimal, multiply by 100 to make it into a percentage. So what they are saying is simplify this to decimal. So now remember, what do we do with the comma? We move it to the left when we divide. Sorry, there's no comma currently. It's just there. And 1, 2, 3, 4. So it actually becomes 0.0625. And then this is, yeah, okay, that's that. Okay, so now that we've simplified, is it 0.0? And did I put an extra 0? Yeah, I think so. 0.625. Okay, so this is in decimal. And then we need to multiply by 100. Okay, when we multiply by 100, essentially we're moving the comma 2 spaces to the right. $62.5. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's move on. 1/20. Let's convert 1/20 to a percentage. So first we're going to convert it to decimal. Now, what's the smallest power of 10 that 20 can go into? What is the smallest power of 10 that 20 can go into? A 100, that's good. So how do I go from 20 to 100? I multiply by 5. So when I multiply 20 by 5, I get 100. When I multiply 1 by 5, I get 5. Okay. And now I do the division. So my number is 5. I need to divide it by 100. And I move it 2 spaces to the left. 1, 2. So this becomes 0.05. Okay. Then if I want to convert it to percentage, I need to multiply by 100 again. So it becomes 0.0512. 1, 2, and that becomes 5, which is in percentage. So 5%. This method works well. Let's look at the next one. We have a negative number. Okay. We have a negative number. We need to convert this to a percentage, if I'm not mistaken. So firstly, we're going to convert this mixed number to an improper fraction. 6 times 1, we ignore the negative and just write it before. 6 times 1 plus 1, which is equal to 7 over 6. And negative in front of it. Now, let's talk about 6. Can 6 go into any of the 10 powers? So what you can do in your calculator is literally try. Say 10 divided by 6, 100 divided by 6, 1,000 divided by 6, 10,000 divided by 6. Okay, no, I don't think you time that now, but it's not 100. Okay, so in this case, is it 6 over 7 or 7 over 6? 7 over 6. In this case, when we can't multiply it, it's not a factor of 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. We have to do long division. So this is 7 divided by 6. So you're taking 7, you divide it into 6 parts. Okay, remember it's negative, so the answer we get is negative. 6 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 6 is 6 minus. So remember the comma is here. And there's zeros. 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring down 1 0. 6 goes into 10. Write the comma twice. Sorry, once. 1 times 6 is 6. Subtract it, you get 4. Bring the 0 down. 6 goes into 40 6 times. 6 times 1 is 36. 4. We put on 1, 2. We can bring on the third one. Six times 6, that's 36. I do the same thing again. Why is long division confusing me? Yeah, I guess we stuck in the loop now. So basically, 36, subtract, you get 4, bring the 0 down, you're getting 40. There's going to be 6, 6, and so on. So here we found the answer, 0,16 with the recurring only on the 6. Okay. Now, how do we convert this to a? How do we convert this to a percentage? We said we just multiplied by 100 now. So the number is 1,6612. And negative. Okay, actually, no, we're not done technically because it's 66666 and 666. Let's get rid of this and do this properly. Okay, technically it's not that, it should be 116, 66666, so we can say 67% negative. Okay, and that's our final answer. Done. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Just keep in mind the negative and yes, recurring. So yeah, in this case, as we saw for all of them, the types where you can get the denominator represented or as a factor of 10, 100, 1,000 and that, and the other one is where you just have to do long division. Okay, what about changing? There's a lot of changing from one to another, yeah. What about changing percentage to decimal and common fractions? Okay, so from percentage to decimal and common fractions, so this one is a bit easier. So because percentage is over 100, this just becomes 20 over 100. Okay, which is equal to yeah, that's fine. So 20 over 100. Why am I writing it over 100? Because percentages can always be written over 100. They will always be written over 100. Okay, so 20 over 100, right? In this case, so what are we converting it to? Common fractions. So now that we have it as this fraction, we can simplify, okay, by dividing everything by the same number. So here we could divide by 20. We could divide everything by 20. Here we get 1. Here we get 5. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'll be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. Let's continue. So yes, we said, okay, so we divide by the same number to simplify. So this has given us the answer in the simplified common fraction, okay, which is 1 over 5. Okay, but now what about if we want to convert it to decimal? Okay, so if you want to convert it to decimal, so this is to common fraction. If you want to convert it to decimal, okay, what we'd have to do in that case is take it from that fraction, okay, and do division. So basically you're saying 20 divided by 100. In that case, you're moving the comma. So you're taking 20 and the comma is there. And you're moving the comma 1. How many spaces to the left? Because you're dividing by 100. 1, 2. Okay, remember when you divide, you move the comma to the left. 1, 2. Okay, in that case, this would simplify to 0, 2. 0, 2, 0, which is basically just 0, 2. And that's in what? That's in decimal form. Okay, let us move on to the next one. So 36%, right? Let's convert this to a, firstly, we convert it to a fraction over 100. Then we take it from there. So this is definitely 36 over 100. Now, if we want to convert it to a common fraction, we just simplify this. 18 over 100, 9 over 50. This becomes 9 over 50. Right, we divided both by 4. Sorry, 9 over 25. Okay, and then this is, that's common fraction. Sorry, we said we divided this by 4. We divided this by 4 as well. Okay, and then here, I'm going to convert it to a decimal. This one was common fraction. If we want to convert it to a decimal, we can divide. Actually, we're going to actually divide by 100. So this is 36, where the comma is there. and you're going to move it 2 spaces to the left. 1, 2. Okay. This is equal to 0.36. How do I tell the difference when I need to divide and multiply the fractions over 100? Could you be more specific? I'm not sure exactly if I understand what you mean. How do I tell the difference when I need to divide or multiply the fractions over 100? Just give me an example if possible. Okay, then you guys can attempt 1.1 point, 115%. Okay, so we just have square roots and cube roots of fractions and decimals, okay, as well as decimal fractions. So we're just gonna addition in decimals, subtraction in decimal, multiplication in decimal, division in decimal, and all of that, right? I added the percentage here. We already did percentage. I just added it here because it's part of the section as well as finance. So we don't have much. So let's end it there. And then next week we shall continue, right? Next week we shall do this and finish this off, and maybe we will be starting a new topic. But yeah, just to answer your question, if I can just gauge what I think you're saying, like how do I know to multiply fractions like this here? And then how do I know I need to divide? So it depends on what you're doing, right? Common fraction to percentage, okay? So in this case, you're going to multiply, because if you want to get it to a percentage, okay, you want to get it to a power of multiply by 100 to make it into a percentage. Yeah, so alternatively, what could work here as well, right, is multiplying it by just 100. So like here, for example, 5 over 8 times 100 over 1. That simplifies 2 times 25 times. This becomes 125 over 2, which is equal to 62.5%. In this case, we multiply by 100, so you can follow the rules. Convert to decimal, multiply by 100 to convert to percentage, right? Here, on the other hand, percentage to... Okay, so in this case, like you're asking, how do I know how to divide? I have to divide here because I'm simplifying it to its most simplest common fraction form. I'm simplifying it to its most simplest common fraction form. Simplifying it to its most simplest common fraction form. Okay, that's why I divide in that case. It's like you can also put this in your calculator. Just put 20 over 100 in your calculator and you'll get 1 over 5. Okay, and then in this case, here we divided, so we move the comma. Yep, no problem. That's okay. That's perfect. Okay, if anything doesn't make sense, practice some examples, and maybe we can do revision on the section next week as well, if you guys need to, if you guys would like to. No problem. You may log off. We're going to end it here as well. Thank you guys so much for joining. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week. And yeah, enjoy your guys' holiday. Jazakallah khair. I wanted to say something and I totally forgot. But yeah, like I said, if you guys don't understand, we can do some revision questions next week as well. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum and goodbye.